Alright, I'm creating a new CoreCycler GUI guide. So, because people seem to be having some issues with how to download and run it the right way. So, if you go to the GitHub page, my GitHub page, there's the link for CoreCycler GUI. Go to that repository. This is the Python version. These are the core files. How I wrote the code. You don't want to download this. You do not want to download this zip file unless you plan on compiling it yourself. Excuse me. Python doesn't run natively on Windows. So over here is where I made a release. So these are my files. This is so where you can use this to see what's going on under the hood if you want. Make sure nothing bad is going on, whatever. Right here is the actual release. So you come to releases, go to the latest release, and then you download this zip file. So after this is done downloading, you're going to extract it. Open it. Now here is the exe. I suggest right-clicking, send to desktop. This will create a shortcut. You're going to right-click on the shortcut, go to Properties, go to Advanced, and Run as Administrator. And then click Apply. Now, the only thing I've made is the GUI. Okay? So, see this warning right here? Pay attention to this, because this is going to be for some other stuff. So if you go to Tools, for some reason, this wasn't doing this when I made the GUI. Everything was working fine when I made the GUI, but I don't know if it's something that Windows 11 has updated and changed some stuff. For some reason now, if I try to open... Oh, it actually worked. Okay. Maybe because I've already done it. I figured because I re-downloaded it, I'd have to do it again. Okay, well, before when I tried doing this, none of these tools were working. Okay, Boost Tester did not work. So maybe that's a good example. What I had to do, I had to go to the Tools folder in the extracted zip folder. I had to go to the Tools, and I had to open, like, PBO2 Tuner. I had to open it from here, and then it popped up that green, we protected your PC screen, and I had to allow it that way first by manually running the tool and approving it through Windows before the GUI would allow me to launch it. So let me see if... Yeah, so see, Windows protected your... Now go to more info and then run anyways. Now the thing worked. Now let's see if it works through... Yeah, now it works. So if you have any issues of these buttons not launching whatever you're trying to launch, go to the Tools folder and manually launch the program through there and allow it through Windows. Then from then on, it should be able to be launched from CoreCycler's GUI. One thing I had to change was the update check. I had it enabled by default because that's what the author of CoreCycler has set. The problem is, again, I only made the GUI. The actual CoreCycler script, right here, and right here, the batch file and the PowerShell script, all that stuff is created by a different author. So as he's updating his scripts, and my GUI is not staying up to date with his changes in his script, it can cause bugs. Well, it worked fine until, I want to say, about a month ago. I ran CoreCycler and I had an issue where it popped up some kind of error log and everything, and I ran it. I went through the log file and found out it had something to do with the update. So I disabled update, and that should fix it. So now we can go through and we can set some stuff. So I'll give you a rundown of the GUI. Here's the general section. This is the test mode you want to run, like what program you want to use the test with. You can use Prime 95, LinPack, Ada64, YCruncher, or the old version of YCruncher. Here's all the options for the test. So you can stop the test on error. These are all settings that are in the config file that the other author from CoreCycler, or the original author of CoreCycler, has in his config file. So all the GUI does, really, is edit the config file. So use config file. This is the config file that is included with CoreCycler. And all these settings you have to go in and manually change. That's where I made the GUI to make the changes for you. So anything you change in here basically just applies these changes into the config file, and then nothing gets applied. Nothing will get applied to the config file until you click apply. So if you make a bunch of changes in this and then you want to save the config file, and you save it and then you reload CoreCycler and the config file isn't showing the changes, it's probably because you didn't apply before you saved. So make sure you check which options you want to use. If you want to use 2 threads, whatever, we'll set this to auto. You can do alternate, or if you do custom, you can set it to, test core 4 and then go to core 8. Now it'll only test cores 4 and 8. Or you can do like alternate, which will basically render these useless. And then you can set 4 and 8 to be ignored. Now it'll alternate cores, and then once it gets to core 4 or core 4.8, it'll just skip and move on to the next core in line. Automatic test mode, you can enable this. Default will just run whatever you have in here. So like I don't have my curve optimizer set, so the default values will be all 0. In my BIOS, if I have these set, it'll basically just load. When this is set to default, it'll start at whatever values you have in your BIOS. So if you set -10 all core in your BIOS, that's what it's going to start here at. Or you can change it. You can set it to -10. This will do a -10 all core. Or you can go 1 by 1. You can set each core, which would be like -5, comma, -5, comma, -10. This would be core 0. This would be core 1. This would be core 2, etc. I just set everything in my BIOS, and I leave this on default. Max CO value allowed. If you leave this at 0, it'll test, say -5 fails. It'll go up to -4 and test -4 offset. If that fails, it'll go up to -3. If that fails, -2, -1. Once it hits 0, it'll stop. It won't go above. You can resume test after crash. I get in the habit of hitting apply every time like I make a change, basically. I don't know why, that's just me. You can change your Prime 95 settings here. Let's see. So let's reset. I'll show you the test I generally run. So I don't stop the test on error because I use automatic test mode. I leave all these enabled. I run one thread. Let's see. I do all FFTs, so restarting for each core doesn't really make a difference. Assign both cores for a single thread. I do auto. You can leave that default. So testing all FFTs takes a while. Like for me, it's like 40 minutes per core. So having iterations at 1,000 would take a very long time. Automatic will enable, default, resume after crash. This is how much it'll adjust. So if you set it to say 5 and you have this at minus 30, every time it crashes, it'll adjust it by 5. So if it crashes at minus 30, it'll go to negative 25. So that's what that is. I'll leave that at 1, hit apply. Prime 95, do all, apply. These are all different test modes. I leave all these at default. So you can use your scroll wheel, by the way, on your mouse to sort through these. If you want to just scroll up and down, or you got these arrows here. So we have Prime 95 set. We've set all our settings in here that we want. And then automatic test mode is enabled. And then because we're running Prime 95, we edited the Prime 95 tab. We set it to all SSE. We hit apply, and then we hit start. It might prompt you. It might say something about creating an entry in your Windows error reporting section, which is because of this. WIA errors are logged in your Windows error. I can't remember the name of it. Error. Can't remember the name of what it's called. I disable the error reporting just so it's one less thing running in the background. But yeah, this is testing right now on Core 0. You can see it running right there. If you want to stop the test or cancel it, just make sure you're in this window. This window is selected, and hold Control and then hit C. That closes it out. So yeah, once you get like a config that you like that works, you can save the config. Let's just lux.config.ini. Now if we let's say we load this one, we'll apply it, we'll start. This is going to run a different config. It's running AVX2 1344 to 1344. So these are different settings. Now, if you come into Lux config, it reapplies all those settings we went through before. So you can create your own config files here. You can load them, save them, whatever you want to do. Just make sure you apply all the settings you make or changes you make to the settings. You have to apply for it to be applied to the config before you save it. Trying to make sure there's nothing else to go over. Another test I like to do is Y Cruncher. For Y Cruncher, I do use the restart for each core. Let's see. Go to the Y Cruncher tab. For me, I know my processor runs 19 ZN2 Kagari for the 5950X. And I want to say SFT, SFT-V4, N63, FFT-V4, FFT. Those were the ones that I found through errors for me. Yours might be different. That's just what I found for my specific processor. I don't think I've ever had an error on any of these other tests, but I mean, my CPU architecture could be different than your guys's, so it all depends on like what processor you have. Helpers, this some of the stuff is included because the original author has it in his CoreCycler program. So these are like helpers that he had. So I just made a link to open the helpers folder. So all this does is open the folder to what he already had. Boost tester, that's just if you want to see like your max boost of each core, you can open like hardware info. And you can run this, and it'll just put a light load on each core one by one, and it'll theoretically test what the maximum boost frequencies for each core. PBO2 tuner, you can manually come in here and change values. If you have, like, this is set in my BIOS. So if I were to try and set it to higher than 95, it won't let me. I can go lower, but it won't let me go higher. But if I set it to 200 in my BIOS, then it'll let me set it here to anything below 200. Curve, this lets you change it, I believe, regardless of what's in your BIOS, you can change this. And CoreCycler uses the command line interface version of PBO2 Tuner. So there's this program with the GUI, but there's also, you can run PBO2 Tuner through the command line interface. Like, so there's no GUI. And that's what the automatic test mode does. Basically just makes adjustments through PBO2 Tuner, but it does it through the command line interface, so you don't really ever see it happen through the GUI. Zen timings, this is just RAM information if you're on AMD. I got a 3200 megahertz kit of DDR4 CL14 that I've overclocked to almost 3800 megahertz. When I do 3800 megahertz, it throws a bunch of weird errors, so I got to do 3733. But I got some pretty tight timings. Pretty happy with it. APIC IDs, this will just show you like APIC ID 27 is logical CPU 27. I mean, it's kind of self-explanatory, but Core Tuner X, I believe this shows you, I gotta do that thing, so tools, Core Tuner X, run anyway. Now it's gonna let me do it from the GUI, so now, bam, there we go. This shows you the performance number assigned to each core. So CPPC V2, for me, if I enable CPPC in my BIOS, but don't enable CPPC preferred cores, these will all be assigned a value of 100. If I enable CPPC and CPPC preferred cores, then it assigns individual values to each core. So core 0 and core 4 have a value of 212. That's the highest value out of any of these numbers. So when I come into Task Manager, core 0, which is these two logical processors, and core 4, which is these two logical processors, they get the most usage. So when I run anything, generally it's assigned to these two cores. That's why you see the usage on these is a little higher. Now, core 13 is my worst, with a value of 149, which is right here, these two logical processors. I will sometimes, I mean, I'm pretty much idle right now other than OBS. If I am playing a game, my game will generally run on all these processors because it's my first CCD. And then I'll see a bunch of usage on this core of the second CCD because this core is generally assigned to background tasks. So when I'm gaming, everything's running on here, like my game and everything. And then anything in the background, like if I have Spotify or anything open in the background, will generally run on this core for background tasks. And that's just how Windows schedules things for my specific processor. I know Intel's very different because they have E cores and P cores. These are all P cores, but it just uses this number to kind of assign this as an E core, even though it's running at basically full speed. It doesn't get parked or anything. You can enable your performance counters. This basically just kind of fixes them if they're messed up. Intel voltage control, I can't run that because I'm on AMD. You can change the log level if you're having issues. You can turn the log level up and it'll give you more information. I generally just leave it at level 2. Debugging if you're having issues. A lot of this stuff you can find more information by going to CoreCycler's original author, his like GitHub or the website. I think they have a website now. You can find more information on some of this stuff through his website. Like I said, I'm not the original author, so, and actually he's not the author of some of the other stuff like Zen Timings, PBO2 Tuner. I believe he's the author of Boost Tester. But yeah, so if something were to change with his program CoreCycler and you were to update the GUI, like if you were to update here and it makes changes to this script or this batch file, it could potentially break the GUI because the code that runs the GUI isn't going to be updated to work with the new scripts that he created. So the version of CoreCycler that I made the GUI to run with is already included in the download. It's this and this and what all the other files he has. All the version of CoreCycler is already included. So if you update, it could break it. Just fair warning you ahead of time. I changed it, the default behavior, so that it is not enabled by default anymore. So that should help. Yeah, so hopefully I covered everything. The main issue I've seen with people is that they're downloading the repo of all the Python files. Most people are downloading this and then commenting on the videos saying, "Oh, I don't have the exe file." You don't have the exe file because you didn't download you didn't download the release. You downloaded the code, basically. You want to download the release. This is the actual release with the exe. Also, I know Zen Timings runs or uses WinRing, which is a DLL file that Windows, I believe PBO2 Tuner might use WinRing as well. Windows Defender has an issue with WinRing. It's a vulnerable driver or whatever. Many programs use WinRing. OCCT is actually working on a replacement for WinRing. And I guess when they do finish building the new DLL and it's safe and secure, they're going to push it out for release to all the other programs. So like Zen Timings and all that, whatever other programs that use WinRing, like CapFrame X is a benchmarking software that monitors your FPS and etc. All those other programs that use WinRing DLL can change to the new DLL whenever it comes out. But until then, all these programs that use WinRing are going to get flagged by your antivirus. So you could go into your antivirus and you can allow an exclusion. You can set it, like I have a folder dedicated. So I just created a folder and C program files excluded from Defender. And now what I would do is I would take the download of CoreCycler and I would just cut it from here, from your downloads. Go to program files. Oh, wait, I forgot. And then you would paste it in there. And then it should just be excluded from Windows Defender. So hopefully that addresses all the issues. If you're still having issues, leave a comment. I'll try to address it. Yeah, hopefully that works.